Hey guys, Jacob here from Venture Addicts, and in today's video, we're going to discuss 10 things you may not know when traveling to Europe. Just to give you a perspective of where we went, I'll pull up a map and kind of go over the itinerary. So from Dallas, we flew into Iceland, Reykjavik to be more specific. Then we had a layover in Frankfurt, and then we went to Milan. And for our 12-day trip all in Italy, we went from Milan to Sardinia, all around the north side of the island. From Sardinia, we went to Naples and went 2 hours south to the Amalfi Coast, and then eventually took a train all the way back up to Milan and spent a few more days in Milan before heading back. On our way back to Dallas, we did have a layover in Copenhagen. We spent a few hours there, and then eventually Iceland, and then back to Dallas. Now, we did spend most of our time in Italy in these different cities, but with the short time we had in Reykjavik and Frankfurt and Copenhagen, with these 10 facts I'm going to discuss, there really was no difference comparing it to Italy. So I think it's safe to say this applies to most European tourist countries. So number one is probably the most important, especially for us as filmmakers, is the power outlets. Now, if you haven't seen any other country outside the US, there's a really good chance they have a different looking dude in their walls. There's a whole variety of different power outlets worldwide, and it's very important that you bring an adapter so you can charge your camera, your phone, and everything you have. I highly recommend getting it before you go. There's a bunch on Amazon. You can look at spending about $20 to $25. If not, you're gonna have a hard time trying to find them around Europe. Your best chances are finding them in airports. In a perfect world, it'd be really nice to have an adapter for every little plug you have, but realistically, you don't want to own 20 or 30 of those. So what we did when we traveled, for the four of us, we had kind of a hub where we had one converter and we had a couple of power strips plugged into each other, and we created a hub where we can charge all of our cameras and phones and everything. Most of us didn't have the chance to sleep with our phone charged next to us or our laptop because it was somewhere in the kitchen or the living room. But this is definitely the best and most convenient choice when you're traveling with a group of people. Number two is taxis. If you go to Uber's website, you can see a list of all the cities they use around the world, and there are a lot of them. To my curiosity, I did some research when in different cities, and I found a popular app called My Taxi. Now, in the US, when I travel, I always like to compare Lyft and Uber, and I just like to see which one I can save a few bucks on. And I was very surprised to see My Taxi working a lot more efficiently and cheaper compared to Uber, and ultimately, I use this over Uber every time. The interface is exactly like Uber, super simple, and I definitely recommend having this as well as Uber when traveling. Number three is data and Wi-Fi. The best thing you can do before traveling is talking to your provider and seeing what options you have while roaming in different countries. For example, I have Verizon Wireless, so I gave them a call and they explained how it will work when I use data in a different country. After adjusting a few settings, they told me the second I land, I could turn on my phone and I'm gonna get a text message and it'll instruct me what to do. So for example, here I have this text from Verizon, and when I land in Italy, it goes, "Welcome to Italy. You have Travel Pass." So that's Verizon Wireless's little thing, I guess, which lets you use your domestic plan for $10 a day. So basically I had unlimited calling, texting, and data, but I only had half a gig of fast data. And once I went past that half gig, it throttled it very, very, very slowly, and it was pretty much useless. So I had to rely on Wi-Fi if I ever hit that point. Mac has Sprint, so he had unlimited text and data, but it was very, very, very slow. And he also had 20 cents a minute for calling, but he didn't have to pay a single penny. It was all part of his plan on Sprint. So if you have AT&T, T-Mobile, whatever, look it up, see what you got, give them a call. And other than that, I think your best option is renting a SIM card or buying a SIM card. I don't really know. I'm not going to go into detail because I have no idea. But basically, you pay for the card, you put it in your phone, and you're good to go. I would definitely recommend looking into that if you don't have a good setup with your provider. Let's say you don't want to do any of that data stuff and you want to just connect to Wi-Fi. From big cities to Milan to small little towns in Sardinia, we did find pretty much every restaurant had Wi-Fi available. So it's not the most convenient route, but you can pretty much guarantee you can find Wi-Fi anywhere you go. Number four is translators. So if you don't have the app downloaded, you definitely have to download Google Translate. You can pick any language you want and even download it so you can use it offline. And then there's also this great feature called conversation. So when you click it, you can pretty much hold it in front of you and someone talking a different language and have a conversation. It's so simple. ¿Cómo está?
How is it going?
It's going good.
Va bien.
All right. And on top of that, you may have heard that everyone in Europe knows English, or everyone at least knows a little bit. And that is very true from, again, big cities like Milan, small towns in Sardinia, little markets. Like these people they just know. Like it's unbelievable. It makes you feel kind of dumb. A lot of people do know English. Just in case they don't, have that app ready to go. Number 5 is my favorite, and that is offline maps. If you're a big Apple Map user or a Waze user, you're gonna want to take a little break from them and jump on over to Google Maps. Google, in my opinion, has the best feature where you can go up here in the top left, hit offline maps, and then go to custom map, and you can literally screenshot any part of the world, download it to your phone, and have it available for offline. Whether you're driving by car, taking the metro, or just walking a mile or two, you pretty much get the exact same features as if you were online. You can search it, you can navigate to it, and even have voice commands for directions. So you can go that whole trip in airplane mode without even having to get lost. All right, number 6 is restaurants, and I'm sure there's a billion articles explaining how tipping works and service works and all this. I'm just gonna give you my little few things that I noticed while going to restaurants that bothered me or I didn't understand until I was actually there. The first thing I noticed is just how slow the whole process is. From sitting down to ordering to paying out. We were with a couple of clients who love to dine out. We probably went out 2 or 3 times every day. And we pretty much saw this consistently throughout our trip. In the US, right when you sit down at your table, there's a really good chance a waiter's just gonna pop up immediately. In Italy, it's a whole different story. You might spend 10 or even 20 minutes sitting there until they even come by with water. And then it gets kind of similar from there, from wanting to get wine to wanting to get your order in and then waiting for food, of course. You're looking at like 10 to 20 minute intervals in between every little thing. And that's just how it is there. Everything's slow, everything's taking your time, just enjoying yourself. And we saw this pretty consistently throughout the country. So if you're looking for a quick bite to get in and out, I'm not gonna recommend you go to a sit-down restaurant because it might take you over an hour just to get your food. Another thing you may not know about is the water. They always serve you with a water bottle. And they may ask you if you want it sparkling or not sparkling. Pretty much you get the option anywhere you go.
With gas? No gas. With gas?
What you may not know is that you are getting charged for that water bottle. And on top of that, you can ask for tap water. Now, there's nothing wrong with the tap water in Italy. From my understanding, I was drinking it back at the Airbnb. Tastes just fine. It's just not popular to get tap water. Everyone gets water bottles. It's just a thing you do. It only costs €1 or €2. You do have the option to choose tap water and not buy water bottles every time you dine in. And a third big one, of course, is tipping. Now, you probably heard, oh, you don't tip in Europe because they get paid hourly or it's rude to tip. I don't really know what the rule is wherever you are in Europe, but basically if it's not an option on a receipt, you don't have to tip. Our clients were paying for all the food along the trip, so I didn't get an exact look at what was going on. I think maybe the more closer you are to tourist areas, there's a better chance you're gonna tip, but I feel like if there's nothing on a receipt asking you to tip, then you don't have to tip. All right, number 7 is money. Now, I think it goes without saying that it doesn't hurt to have some cash, some paper in hand when traveling, even when in the States. But when traveling to Europe or Asia or anywhere, it is a safer bet to get your euros or whatever at the bank before you fly out. I mostly use a credit card, more specifically, this Marriott Reward Visa card that I have. I didn't have to call the bank and let them know I was traveling. I didn't have to worry about them freezing it. And I don't have to worry about any kind of conversion or fees for using different currency or whatever. If you have a credit card, some kind of rewards program, I definitely recommend calling them up and seeing what kind of fees or options you have when traveling and using it out of the States. When going to different restaurants and cafes and markets, it's kind of hard to tell if they'll take credit cards over euros. So pretty much the first thing I would do, I would walk in with the credit card, show the clerk or show the waiter or anyone, be like, hey, do you take credit cards? They'll say yes or they'll say no. and then I know if I can dine there or not. I would definitely recommend doing that, especially at like a small town or in a hole-in-the-wall restaurant. Make sure they take your credit card. It would suck if you were there a whole hour and you couldn't even pay because it was cash only. I don't even know what you would do. So make sure before you do anything, they'll take your card and you're good to go. And always have some euros or whatever kind of currency just in case. Number 8, we're going to talk about bathrooms, more specifically bidets. This was something that piqued my interest when going to Europe. And basically, it's just that if you're out in public, there's no bidet and there's just toilet paper like any other restroom you see here in the US. But at home, we stayed at 4 different Airbnbs and every single one had a bidet. In fact, one of our Airbnbs didn't even have toilet paper. So if you don't feel like getting a little cultural and trying out the bidet, I recommend just going to the market, picking some toilet paper up, and you're good to go. Number 9 was probably the most surprising and painful thing to me, and that was the coffee. Now this may depend wherever you are in Europe, but all around Italy, they don't have drip coffee. So like the kind of coffee machines you have at home where you could fill up like 12 cups of coffee and just pour it, you'd be good to go. Didn't see a single one of those machines anywhere. Everything was espresso machine. Your equivalent to a cup of coffee was, of course, a cafe Americano. If you don't know what an Americano is, that is just a shot or a double shot of espresso and they fill it up with water. Essentially, coffee. So Mac and I went 2 weeks sipping down these small Americanos. They're not even big. You go to Starbucks, you get a 20 ounce of these. They're typically just about a cup. So the ratio of water to espresso isn't as much room as you would get in the US. So you're really getting that potent, strong espresso on the daily. A big misconception in Italy is that there's a drink called a cafe Americano and an Americano. And we were very used to saying just Americano because that's what we call it in the States. Now the problem with that is that an Americano is an alcoholic beverage. I don't even know what's in it, but it is nasty, and that is something you don't want to be drinking at 6 a.m. in the morning. So get used to saying cafe Americano and get used to when you come home, the coffee here just tastes like water. We went to a cafe the second we landed, and our coffee was just like, it was nothing. So you'll get used to that. And number 10 is a little bit of a goof. Now, around Italy, they have green pluses everywhere. And if you ever been to California or Oregon or Washington, you may be familiar with this symbolizing marijuana. In Italy, that is not the case. It is their symbol for pharmacies. I feel like it must be a law or something because every single pharmacy in Italy has this green neon sign sticking out that is way too resemblant to a marijuana store in the US. So I guess the lesson here about that is just not to get your hopes up of what is going to be in that store. So there's 10 things that you may not know before you travel to Europe for the first time. I definitely learned a lot of new things. These are a list of things that I did personally experience, but please feel free to fact check me in the comments down below. If you have any questions, you can DM us on Twitter or Instagram. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos in the future.